Okay guys, so welcome back again. So in this video, let's see that how do we scale our Docker containers. So before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button and do like the video at the end in case you like the video. So let's dive into VS Code and let's see that how do we scale our Docker containers. So as you can see that for demonstration purposes, I have created this Nodejs Express application and it is a very simple app.js file. And we only have this expressed as a dependency here. And then we are only making a use of a single route here, which handles all the routes. That is app.use / and then we have the request response. And then we are simply sending back the JSON response object. So if we simply run this application, we can check that if it is all working fine. So we can do node app.js. And now we see that our server is running on port 3000. And if we make a call to that localhost port 3000, we should be getting back a response here. And we see that we get back a message here that says, okay, it works. And the host name is my MacBook's name here. And it is for a reason that I'm providing this host name as a response here, because when we are running multiple Docker containers, then this would be the container ID of the running container. So therefore I provided in this host name here. So now let's have a detailed look at the files that are present inside this application. So we see that we have a Docker file here, we have a docker compose.yaml file, and we have a .docker ignore file. So this video is not about explaining you that how do you use a docker compose file to run your Node.js application. In case if you don't know that how do you use docker file and docker compose to run your Node.js applications, then you can watch my video that is linked above. But here we only want to see that how do we scale the containers. That is, I want to run this Node.js application in multiple containers at the very same time so that I can have horizontal scaling available inside our application. So we see that here we have the Docker file, which simply imports the Node Alpine image. And then we have set the workdir here. Then we are simply copying the package.json file. And then we are simply running npm CI. And if you think that why I'm using npm CI and not npm install, it is because that using npm CI makes sure that you have the same versions of the packages that are present inside your local machine, and that same packages would be present inside your Docker container. So therefore I'm simply using npm CI, and CI stands for continuous integration. And then we are simply copying all the files to a Docker image, and then we are simply executing this command, that is node app.js. And now if we have a look at the docker ignore file, we see that while creating the images, I do not want to push the node modules folder. I do not want to push the docker file and the .docker ignore file and the docker compose.yaml file to our Docker container. And now if we have a look at the docker compose.yaml file, we see that we are using the version 3.9, and then we have the services here, and it is simply a Node.js application, and we have given this service a name called API and a container name, that is Node.js API, and we are simply building this Docker file that is present here, and then we are exposing this port, that is port 3000 of our Docker container to our local machine, that is again on port 3000. So now let's use this docker compose.yaml file to see that everything is working fine. So let's go to our terminal here and let me clear out the screen once again. So it should be clear. And now I can simply do docker compose up. And now we should be seeing that our application should be up and running. And firstly, it is simply creating the Docker file. And now we see that our application is up and running on port 3000. So let me open another tab here. And now if I do simply curl localhost 3000, we see that again we get back a message from our Docker container. And this time we see that the host name is the ID of the container that is running. So we can verify that by doing docker ps. So we see that this host name is simply matching the container ID in which our Node.js application is running. So we can verify this and this thing here. So everything seems to be working fine. So let me clear out the screen. Let me go to this tab here and let me stop this application by doing Control-C. So now the application is stopped, or the container is stopped. So let me clear out the screen once again. And now if we go back, we see that we want to run this API service or this API service in multiple containers at the very same time. So what we can do, we can use a scale flag here that is provided by Docker Compose. So now let's try to scale this service. So now let's do Docker Compose up -- scale, and then we need to provide an API equal to 2. Because the service name is API and the container name inside our application is Node.js API. So watch what would happen. So if I do this, we see that we get an error here, and the error says that Docker requires each container to have a unique name. So to fix this, what we need to do, we need to simply remove the custom container name that we provided in our service here. So the first thing we need to do is that we need to simply comment this line out from here like this, and this is only necessary if you are scaling up the containers, that is if you want to run multiple instances of the container. So then you do not need to provide in a container name, we only want to provide in a service name here. And now if we go back and if we again do this thing here, that is docker compose up -- scale API equal to 2, then we are about to get one more error, and we would be seeing that also. So we see that we created this container here, that is this is created and this is created, and we should be getting some error here, and this is the error here, that is error response from daemon. And it says that since we are exposing this port here from each of the containers to our local machine, and our local machine's port 3000 can only be mapped to a single container, so this is not the way to do things. You cannot directly use a local machine port that is 3000 and you can map it to different container ports. That is, even if I provide here 4000, then each of the containers would be running on port 4000, but our local machine only has a single port 3000 here, and you cannot map a single port to multiple container ports. So what you can do, you can simply comment the ports out from here. So now since we do not map any ports from our local machine to our Docker containers, so we do not have any idea that on which port the API service would be started. So to fix this issue, what we need to do, we need to use Nginx as a reverse proxy and a load balancer at the very same time to map our local machine's port 3000 to the Nginx container port 3000, and that Nginx container would be like proxying our request to the individual Node.js containers that are running on a Docker network. So let's see that how do we do that. So for that, what I need to do, I need to define one more service here, and that is called Nginx like this. And then what I need to do, I need to provide in the image name. So the image name would be Nginx at latest. Like this, and now we need to map the volumes from our local machine that would be containing the Nginx conf file. So we can say volumes like this, and we would be mapping a folder called conf.d. So conf.d, and this should be mapped to /etc nginx /conf.d, because all the files that are present inside the folder that is called conf.d. So let me create that folder first here, that is conf.d like this. So each and every Nginx configuration file that is present inside this folder would be mapped to this path, that is Nginx conf.d, and this is the default path in which Nginx or your custom configuration file should be kept inside any virtual machine. So this is the path that is hard-coded here, and this should be this part exactly here, and this folder name, that is conf.d, can be any name depending on your choice, but I prefer to call it conf.d. And now this container should only start only when this API service is up and running. So what we can do, we can simply say depends on, or we can provide in a depends on directive, and here we can simply provide in the service name, that is API in our case. And now what we need to do, we need to map the port 3000 of this Nginx container to our local machine. So we can say ports like this, and we need to map port 3000 of our local machine to 3000 of the Nginx container, not the API container, but the Nginx container. So this is, you should note that here we are mapping a port that is 3000 of our local machine to the Nginx container on port 3000. So now we can save this file, and now we haven't created any file inside this conf.d directory. So let me create the one configuration file. So you can call this file by any name. So let me simply call it myconf.conf file. Like this, and this is a Nginx configuration file. And now inside this file, what we can have, we can simply create a server block. That is a typical server block in Nginx. So we can say server, and then this should listen on some port. So it should be listening on port 3000 like this, and then we need to provide in a location path here, and this is all Nginx stuff. And if you don't know that how to write configuration files or the server blocks, then again you can watch my video in which I have explained in detail, that is how to set up an Nginx server. So here we can simply provide in a location block here, which would be proxying all the requests coming to port 3000 to this proxy here. And here we can simply provide in the proxy pass. So proxy pass like this, and this should be HTTP API colon 3000 like this. And now you might be wondering that why provided in this API colon 3000 is because that each of the requests that is coming from local machine would be proxied to Nginx on port 3000, and this is handled by this thing here. And then whenever it sees a request that is coming here, it would proxy that request to this API service that is running on port 3000. That is a Node.js container, and it would do that in a round robin approach. That is, firstly it would proxy to first container, and secondly it would proxy to second container, and then if the third request arrives, it would be proxied to the first container again. The fourth request would be proxied to the second container again. So fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So this is the round robin approach that this Nginx container would follow. So that's all what we need to do here. So let's save this file, that is my conf file. And now what we can do, we can go back to our application, and let me clear out the screen. And now what I need to do, docker compose up -- scale API equal to 2. And here we are not scaling the Nginx container, we only want to scale the API service container. So let me do it this way. And now as soon as I press enter, what it would do, it would say that there is no such image as Nginx latest, and it is because instead of @ I need to provide a colon here. It should not be like that. So that was my mistake here, and it should be colon latest like this. So let's save it once again. And now let me do docker compose up scale API equal to 2. So let's press enter, and it should be done in a moment or so. So now we see that our server is running on port 3000, and we see this 2 times here, that is API 1 and API 2, and server on port 3000 and server on port 3000 again. And now what I can do, I can open another tab here, that is terminal tab here, and if I do curl localhost port 3000, we should be getting back a response here, and we see that we get this host name here. And if I do curl once again, then we should be getting a response back from the different container or from the second container here. So we see that this time we get back from this container here. And if I can show it to you, so let me simply open another tab here. And here if I'll simply do docker container or docker ps, we see that we have these 2 containers here. So we have these 2 containers here. Firstly, we have the Nginx container, and then we have this container here. That is this container name here, container ID here, that is 86C88. We see that we have this container ID here that is sending back our response. So we see that we have these 2 Node.js containers that start with 86C, and we have E007. So if we look back at our response here, we see firstly we are getting back a response from this container, and then we are getting back a response from this container. So if I again do curl localhost port 3000, we should be getting back from this container again. And if I make a request once again, we should be getting back a response from the second container here, like this. And we are also seeing the log statements here, that is I am sending a response, and it is coming because of a log statement that I provided inside our app.js file. So here we can see that we are getting this thing here, that is os.hostname, which simply provides us the container ID here. So now what I can do, I can simply scale these containers to as many containers as I want. So let me simply go back to my terminal once again, and let me close these windows here. And now let me stop the application once again, or the containers once again. So now let me clear out the screen once again. So this time what I'm going to do, I'm going to scale for 10 containers. So if I do simply docker ps, we see that we do not have any running containers. And if I do docker ps -a, we see that we have this Nginx latest, we have these 2 containers that were created on the previous go. And now I'm going to again use the scale flag to run up to 10 containers here. So docker compose up, so where is it? So docker compose up scale API equal to 10. So if I do this time we would be having 10 containers running. So we see that we have these 10 containers running, that is 1 2 3 4 5 6. You can see the numbers here, and they are all colored. So let me open another tab here once again. So if I do docker ps, we see that we have in all about 10 containers running here, and you can verify it yourself. I'm not going into too much detail about that thing. So let me clear out. And if I simply make request here, that is curl localhost port 3000, we get back response from first one container, from second container, from third container, from fourth container. And we see that we are getting back a response in a round robin approach, and you can verify it yourself. But the whole idea of this doing this was to show you that is how do you scale your Node.js application, or in case any application using multiple Docker containers. So guys, if you have liked the video, do hit the like button now. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. So thank you. Bye bye. Tata. Take care and have a good day and have a great day.